Hi, this is your application specialist, Dean Eldridge at FREY Municipal Software. Today, I will be demonstrating the new features, improvements, and refinements of the 2022 release of CHIPS. This will be a great opportunity to explore and learn how to get more value from your CHIPS payroll system. Please refer to the CHIPS release letter for information concerning these enhancements. If you are following along in the release letter, please mark any items that you have further questions about and contact support at 1-800-659-3739, or you can email us at support@freymunicipalsoftware.com. Let's begin by logging into CHIPS and begin reviewing the new enhancements to the CHIPS 2022 release. When logging into CHIPS after the update has been installed, each user will be prompted to read the current release letter. This will contain information about all of the enhancements, including the ones we'll be discussing today. Click Yes to review the release letter, No to not view the release letter, or you can check the box not to see this message again. A Stay Connected message will also display. Once this is filled out, this message won't appear again for this user. The release letter is always accessible from the Help Release Letter menu option. Now let's begin reviewing the enhancements to CHIPS 2022. First, we'll discuss several enhancements with the Employee Maintenance menu. First, for users with the Data Dictionary module, there is now the ability to send the employee advanced search results to Excel. So when you go to Employees and to the Advanced Search, and you enter in something to search for, setting your filters and what you want to search, which field you want to search within. Once you click on Search and results come up for users with the Data Dictionary module, an Excel button will now be available in the bottom right-hand corner, which by clicking on that option will send those results to Excel. These results will include the same information that the print search results also shows. Also, in employee maintenance, additional checking has been added to the system when you attempt to delete an employee. These changes will apply when you try to delete an employee from within employee maintenance, as well as during the year-end closing process, where you can choose to remove employees there as well, or delete employees from there as well. When you click on delete, not only is it going to look and see if there's any information for the current year, it will also verify there's none for the previous year. The idea with that is if you haven't printed W-2s yet, we want to make sure we don't delete more than you meant to. So any employee that had activity for the current year, as well as any history, any pay history for the previous year, it will stop you when you try to delete those, so we can maintain that information for the purposes of printing W-2s and other reporting functions that might need to occur. The next option in employee maintenance are changes related to the gender field. This field has been changed from a drop-down to an entry field, which will allow the user to select a gender or leave it blank. There is also the ability to search for the gender to use. Due to the gender field changing from a drop-down to an entry field, a new gender maintenance program has been added to the system. These are used for both employee maintenance and the dependents within the ACA module. So this gender maintenance process or program we'll talk about will be used for both here as well as for users that have the ACA reporting module and utilize the dependent section. So this gender maintenance area that we'll talk about is related to both of those. So we're going to go into employees and down to genders. And this is where the genders are set up in the system. During the conversion, the male and female are created automatically, so this table is already built from there. This is a 20-character field. And in addition to the gender maintenance screen here, you can also, from this screen, print a report, which you could list employees with their gender included to see groupings of each employee by their gender. The next thing we'll talk about is on the employee full report. So when you go into employees and down to reports and to the full report, on this full report, the termination reason field has been moved to print after the additional phone numbers to accommodate the 20-character gender field. So just kind of reorganizing the report so things fit a little bit better. The next area of changes that we'll discuss are related to the employee global changes. So when you go into employees and down to global changes, any of these options that start out with change employees or a change employer, these are the things we'll be talking about. And on each one of these, there's a new checkbox at the bottom to return to this option screen after the changes finish processing. If this box is checked, then after the changes are complete, it will return back to this option screen. Any logs that print will be printed before returning to this screen. An example of where this might be used would be if you have, let's say, multiple retirement deduction codes. When that percentage changes, or those percentages change, that might reflect in several different deduction codes. So when we go to this menu option, employees, global changes, and then change employees, deduction earnings, we'll access this screen, which is where we could come in and maybe say for maybe each of these retirement deductions is changing. So we might select this retirement, come down here and tell it it's going to change to 5%. Click process or preview, process that change, which will then print out the change results. When it's finished making those changes and printing out the change log, it'll return back to this screen. So maybe we could select the next code. So just kind of an idea or an option that if you have multiple codes and they're all changing, then we could stay on this screen once we set our filters, which statuses and so on, make our change, return back to this screen, and continue until we're finished. The same thing also might be useful if we set up a default amount on the deduction code itself. When we change that default, we also need to synchronize those on employees that already have it, if that's what we want to do. And if we could do that same sort of thing here by selecting the code, selecting the option to synchronize the defaults, process those, it would then print out the change log, which would then return back to this screen, and then we would choose the next code. So just an easier way to stay within these screens without having to go back to the menu option each time. The next area of enhancements that we'll discuss are related to the user-defined pay types. So the user-defined pay types, like we'll just pull up an employee real quick, and when we go to the payroll screen, the bottom half of this screen, you can define user-defined pay types. These user-defined pay types are created, or they're set up within the general user-defined pay types menu. So this is where you create these user-defined pay types. The new enhancement is when you're accessing these user-defined pay types, there's now a new option or a button down at the bottom of the screen where we can look to see which employees has this pay type. So if we wanted to see what all employees are assigned to the on-call pay type in this example, we could view the on-call pay type, come down here and click employees with this pay type, and it would display each employee that has that pay type. At the bottom of the screen, we can also filter. So if we just want to see the active employees, I could uncheck the non-active statuses, and it would just display those. At the top of the screen, there's also buttons where we can view the employee or edit the employee. So if we want to edit this employee with this user-defined pay type, we could click on Edit. That's where the pay type is set up, but we could come in here and edit the employee, view them, and that can be done for any of the user-defined pay types. The next item that I'll go over is related to the deduction report. So when you either go to Reports, Deduction Reports, and choose Deduction Report here, or from the front screen when you choose Reports, you can get to this from there as well. But the enhancement is related to when you use this deduction code selection option. So if you choose this deduction code selection option, you select which deductions to include. When I select those, the new options are related to this new Clear Deductions button. So if I've selected items in here, and then I want to clear this out instead of removing them individually, I can hit Clear. Clears the screen, so I can go in and select whichever other ones I want. In addition to that is if I'm on the Select Deductions button itself, so a moment ago I hit Clear Deductions, which removed all these, but if I click on the Select Deductions when I'm on this screen here, I can come over here and I now have a Reset button. And when I click this Reset button, you'll see at the bottom there's 3 selected. When I click the Reset button, it clears it from this screen. So basically, this is to reset the selections that I'm picking on here, versus on the front screen, I'm clearing the deductions. So this could be useful if you're maybe utilizing the return to option screen at this bottom, on the bottom part of the screen. Maybe you're doing something where you're printing a bunch of those, you print, preview, send it to Excel, you put in a date range and so on. Once you've returned back to this screen, maybe you want to do a different group of deductions. You would click Clear Deductions, select which ones you want now, or from this screen we could have hit Reset as well. So the next option that we'll talk about is related to the payroll, the calculate payroll process, and some additional information that prints on the payroll error list. So in this sample, I already have a time payroll entered. So I've already entered some time payroll. And I'm going to click on the calculate payroll. So this new option, or this new information, is related to when we calculate payroll. When we calculate payroll, there is an error list that comes out. So this is the error list here. The error list has been changed to now include the previous gross pay as well as the previous net pay. And these are what's used as the comparison for the current net pay and the current gross pay as far as the highs and lows. So these two columns here, previous gross pay and previous net pay, are new. So when you see that the gross is low, you can see now on the report itself what it was in the previous payroll versus the current payroll. To make room for these new fields, if there is an overflow that prints, it would now print on a second line, so underneath of that line. So some additional information that can be useful when you do receive those errors concerning why it's higher or lower. You can see the number that it's comparing it to. The next new feature is also related to the calculate payroll report. This one is related to the consolidated payroll registers. So when you calculate payroll, you have two options down here toward the bottom, the separated payroll register and the consolidated. So this new feature is related to the consolidated payroll register. And this is the same thing we ran a moment ago and saw the error list. But when this consolidated payroll register is run, there are, at the end of this report, so I'm going to go to the very end of it. At the end of this report, there's a new group of summaries that group deductions and earnings based on the check description. So this is going to include the employee amount, employer amount, and total. And these groupings are based on the check description. So for example, on this new section, so this part here is new, but this new section, you'll see that there's one line that has this FRS, which is one of my example retirement codes. So this is one line for the FRS. If I scroll up a little bit to get more to the detail, which this part is what you see now when you print this report, which is still included, but there will be multiple, in this case, retirement codes that are set up, but they each one have the exact same check description. So these are all individual retirement deduction codes. So I've set all these up individually, but they're combined based on this check description. So just a way to kind of give you a summary to more easily see what those totals are. That deduction code total is still up a page from here, but now there's an additional summary that summarizes based on the check description. The next option that we'll talk about is the withholding invoice archive. So a new withholding invoice archive has been added to the system. It's located in the Utilities submenu, which is on the File menu option. And it's down here at the bottom. When a withholding invoice is created with either the Create by Vendor or Create Bulk Invoice option, the withholding invoice will now be archived. You'll then be able to view the details of the previously created withholding invoices within this withholding invoice archive. Only withholding invoices created with CHIPS 22 or later will be available to view within the withholding invoice archive. So in here, you can see that I have a couple of archives for withholding invoices that I've created. If you double click on it, it'll show you the detail, when it was created, who it was created by, what filters were selected when I generated those withholding invoices. We can next and previous to click and go through the different ones that have been created through there. So basically what this relates to, so that's where the archive is, but how that gets populated is when you run the withholding invoices. So either option, create by vendor or bulk. So when you come in here and put in the appropriate ranges, dates, deduction codes, tax codes, you select which ones. So if I were to come in here and create one for the retirement system, once I hit OK here, this has sent it over to Bucks to create the invoice, which that part it's always done. But now it's also created an archive or a history of each time we've created a withholding invoice. So now we see the retirement one that I just created. Double click on it and see the pieces related to it. Next, we'll talk about a couple of changes related to the W-2 form print. So when you print W-2s, there's now the ability to protect the Social Security number on the forms. So both of these options apply. We'll talk about both. First, the print single part W-2, which is the one that prints 2 W-2s per sheet. There are now options to protect Social Security number on all copies and protect Social Security number after the first copy. So the protect Social Security number after the first copy would be used for users that also print copy A, which that's the red form that gets sent out to the IRS, as it still needs the Social Security number on it. So if you do print that particular copy, then when this box is selected and we hit OK, it will print the W-2 on the very first copy, so the first load of them that you do. So you load your forms, print. That first copy would include the Social Security number. Then all copies after that, when it prompts you to, do you want to print again and so on, each copy after that would protect the Social Security number. On the 4-part form, so when we come in here to the W-2 forms and we select the 4-part form, this is the one that one sheet of paper has 4 W-2s, all for the same employee. There's only a protect Social Security option on this screen. The 4-part form doesn't print the copy A form. So if we check this box, when we print these W-2s, it will protect, meaning it will only print the last 4 digits. The other digits will be protected. With either W-2 print option, you'll have the ability now to protect the Social Security number on the copy that you print out for the employee. The next option that we'll talk about is also related to W-2 forms, but this one's related to the web services one. So now there's the ability to protect the Social Security number on the W-2s that are out there for the employee to download on the web. This option would be enabled by going into General, System Controls, and then Edit, and we would go to the Preferences tab. And then down here on the bottom right side, there's an option that says Web Services Preferences. When we click on that, down at the bottom of this screen, there's an option to protect Social Security number on the W-2 forms. Once this box is checked, the next time the W-2 files are generated, the Social Security number will be protected for the tax year that is generated. So that applies to users that have the Web Services module in CHIPS. The final option that we'll talk about is another option that's in the system controls, and this is the ability to define an alternate path that's available for users that have the retirement interface, unemployment interface, or the Indiana Gateway 100R module. So to access those, we'll go back into the General, System Controls, Edit, and back to the Preferences tab. At the bottom is a button to define the alternate path information. From here, you can select whichever one is applicable to your organization, whichever modules you might have, and you can specify the alternate location to create this file in. So for example, we could use this to set up a different location with the retirement file for it to be easier to locate when we're uploading the file to the state or whoever is going to. So I would check on that box, and then from here I would select a location to create this file. And this is totally up to you as the user to define where you would want this to be set up. So I could maybe set it up on my desktop, or maybe set it up in an alternate location in the FREY folder or the CHIPS folder, just somewhere where it's easier for you to find it. So on the desktop, just as an example, I'll create a folder called the retirement file. So I'll designate that path here. So every time I create a retirement file, it's going to drop it in that folder. So when I go in and create the retirement file, so I'll go to Reports, create the retirement file, and create the file. And then when I go down to the desktop, so down the desktop, I created a folder called retirement file, and that will contain the file that I just created. So just an easier way to help locate those files, put it somewhere that's easier to find. And that's for any of those retirement files, as well as the unemployment interface report and the 100R for the Indiana Gateway. This will conclude the CHIPS 2020 release overview. We at FREY Municipal Software would like to thank everyone who responded to our CHIPS survey, as well as those who participated in our beta testing. These ideas and suggestions are submitted by our users, by our customers, and they are the driving force for changes made to our software. I hope this video was helpful. Please let support know of any questions. Thank you.